The Galactic Women's Tribunal. In a galaxy far, far away, a society thrived that was both powerful and intelligent. The Galactic Women's Tribunal. Comprised of women from various planets and species, the tribunal served as the ultimate authority on justice and equality, fiercely dedicated to upholding the rights of all beings. Their mission was clear: to create a harmonious galaxy where no one was subjected to oppression or violence. One fateful day, a distress call shattered the tranquility of the tribunal's headquarters, a dazzling structure floating amidst the stars. The message came from a small planet on the outskirts of the galaxy, called Lyriel. The inhabitants, a matriarchal society of fierce warriors, had captured a human accused of a grave crime against their women. The urgency in their plea was palpable, and the tribunal knew immediate action was required. The tribunal convened, their assembly room echoing with the voices of its members, each representing different cultures and ideologies. Among them was Chairwoman Serafina, a commanding presence with eyes that sparkled like distant stars. She called the meeting to order, emphasizing the importance of justice not only for the victims but also for maintaining the integrity of intergalactic relations. As the hearings commenced, a holographic projection of John, the accused, appeared before them. He was a man of average stature, with a disheveled appearance that told a story of desperation. The accusations against him were severe. He had allegedly attempted to assault the daughters of Lyriel during a recent diplomatic visit, believing that his status as a human from a more powerful planet afforded him impunity. The women of Lyriel, represented by their fierce leader, Commander Aliana, filled the gallery. Her voice rang out with a combination of anger and sorrow as she detailed the events that transpired. This man violated our sacred trust. He believed he could take what was not his, and we will not stand for it. We demand justice, not only for our daughters but for all women across the galaxy who face such threats. The tribunal listened intently, knowing that this case was not just about one man's actions, but a reflection of the broader issues of misogyny and power dynamics prevalent in many societies. As Aliana spoke, the emotions in the room grew palpable. Many members had experienced similar injustices in their own worlds. John was given an opportunity to speak in his defense. He claimed ignorance of Lyriel's customs and laws, presenting a narrative of a misunderstood visitor. I come from a place where such interactions are common, and I did not intend harm, he insisted, desperation lacing his words. His defense, however, fell flat in the eyes of the tribunal, which had heard countless stories of women silenced by male privilege. The tribunal deliberated, weighing the gravity of John's actions against the rights of the women of Lyriel. They understood that this case could set a precedent for how intergalactic crimes against women were handled. They could not afford to show leniency, nor could they allow John's plea for ignorance to overshadow the harm done. After hours of debate, Serafina called for a vote. Each member of the tribunal cast their ballot, and when the results were tallied, the outcome was unanimous. John was found guilty of attempted assault and violation of Lyrielian laws. The tribunal sentenced him to a period of rehabilitation, during which he would be required to understand the cultural significance of consent and the importance of equality in all interactions. As John was escorted away, the women of Lyriel erupted in cheers, feeling that their voices had finally been heard. The tribunal had not only delivered justice but had also reinforced the importance of protecting women across the galaxy. They had sent a clear message. No one, regardless of their status or origin, could evade accountability for their actions. In the aftermath of the hearings, the Galactic Women's Tribunal continued its mission, emboldened by the case of Lyriel. They vowed to work tirelessly to ensure that every being in the galaxy understood the value of respect and equality, knowing that their legacy would echo through the stars for generations to come. The trial of John was a tense affair, marked by an air of palpable anticipation and deep-seated emotions among the assembled crowd. The women of the planet, dignified yet fierce, stood united, presenting their evidence and testimonies against him. They recounted their experiences, painting a vivid picture of betrayal and suffering that John's actions had caused within their community. Each account resonated with a weight of shared pain, amplifying the gravity of the situation. John, seated at the front of the tribunal, maintained a veneer of calm. His eyes scanned the audience, filled with anger and mistrust, as he fervently denied the accusations. He claimed he had been framed, a victim of a conspiracy orchestrated by the very people who now sought to condemn him. Yet, despite his protests, the mounting evidence against him was overwhelming. Witnesses presented documents, recordings, and testimonies that systematically dismantled his defense, showcasing a pattern of deceit and harm that left little room for doubt. As the proceedings continued, the atmosphere grew increasingly charged. The tribunal, composed of the planet's elders, convened in a nearby chamber to deliberate. For hours, they weighed the severity of John's actions against the impact on their society. The elders debated fiercely, balancing the need for justice with the ideals of compassion and rehabilitation. They considered the traditional punishments, death or imprisonment, yet found themselves grappling with the potential consequences of such actions. Would killing him serve as a true deterrent, or would it deepen the divide between him and the planet's inhabitants? Eventually, the elders reached a decision that left everyone stunned. As the members of the tribunal emerged, the tension in the room reached a breaking point. Instead of the anticipated sentence of death or a lengthy prison term, they announced a punishment that seemed almost unfathomable. John was to be forced to reproduce with the daughters of the planet as a form of reparation for the harm he had caused. The room erupted in shocked murmurs, disbelief etched on the faces of the audience. To many, this decision felt like an affront, an indignity to the very fabric of their society. They had hoped for justice but now faced a reality that twisted their understanding of retribution. The elders explained that the intent behind their ruling was to create a path toward healing, to intertwine John's fate with that of the planet in a way that would acknowledge his wrongdoings while fostering a sense of communal restoration. Yet, the implications of this ruling were complex and troubling. It raised questions about agency, consent, and the nature of true reparation. While some viewed this as a chance for the community to reclaim their power, others feared it could further victimize those who had already suffered. As John absorbed the verdict, a mix of emotions washed over him: confusion, anger, and a flicker of hope. He realized that he would have to navigate a new reality where his existence was inexorably tied to the very people he had wronged. John was stunned by the tribunal's decision. He had expected a harsh punishment for his crimes, but being ordered to reproduce with the daughters of the planet was a fate worse than death in his eyes. As he was escorted to the quarters where he would be staying, he pleaded with the tribunal to reconsider their decision, but they remained unmoved. The planet he had been sent to was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The sky was a deep shade of purple, and the air smelled of exotic flowers. The women he encountered were unlike any he had ever met. They seemed to possess a grace and beauty that was otherworldly. But despite the beauty of his surroundings, John could not shake the feeling of dread that gripped his heart. He knew that he had no choice but to comply with the tribunal's orders, but the thought of being forced to father children against his will filled him with revulsion. As he settled into his new living quarters, John tried to make sense of his situation. He had been a criminal on Earth, but on this planet, he was a commodity to be used for reproduction. It was a cruel fate, and he struggled to come to terms with it. But as the days passed, John began to see a different side of the women he was meant to mate with. They were kind and caring, and they treated him with a gentle touch that he had never experienced before. They spoke to him in soft, melodic voices, and over time, he began to feel a connection with them. One day, as he wandered through the lush gardens that surrounded his quarters, he came across a young woman named Serafina. She had long, flowing hair the color of spun gold, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence and kindness. As they spoke, John realized that Serafina was not like the other women he had met. She was strong-willed and independent, and she did not seem interested in the idea of using him for reproduction. Instead, she treated him as an equal, and they spent hours talking about their lives and experiences. As their friendship deepened, John found himself falling for Serafina. She was unlike anyone he had ever met before, and he knew that he could not bear the thought of being forced to mate with anyone else. But as the time came for him to fulfill his duty to the tribunal, John was faced with a dilemma. He could obey their orders and mate with the women of the planet, or he could defy them and risk facing even harsher consequences. In the end, John chose to follow his heart. He refused to mate with the other women, and instead, he confessed his love for Seraphina. To his surprise, she felt the same way, and together, they defied the tribunal and started a new life together on the planet. As they explored their new home, John and Seraphina learned to embrace their differences and celebrate the love that had brought them together. Despite the challenges they faced, they knew that they were stronger together, and they vowed to create a future where they were free to love and live as they pleased. And so, John's dilemma became a testament to the power of love and the strength of the human spirit. In the end, he had found his true purpose, not as a criminal or a commodity, but as a man who was willing to fight for the things he believed in. As John spent more time on the planet, the initial hostility he felt began to transform into a deeper understanding. He had been thrust into this alien world under the weight of accusations he believed were unfounded. But as the days turned into weeks, he found himself drawn into the fabric of a society that was both foreign and strangely captivating. The women of this planet, whom he had initially seen as cold and indifferent, revealed layers of strength and resilience. They held positions of power and authority, leading their communities with a wisdom that came from generations of nurturing harmony. Their society was built on principles of cooperation and mutual respect, qualities that John had often taken for granted back on Earth. In his interactions with the daughters of the planet, he began to see their humanity more clearly. Each encounter peeled back the veneer of animosity, exposing stories of struggle, sacrifice, and triumph. They were not just victims of his actions. They were fierce individuals with dreams, ambitions, and a sense of community that inspired him. The warmth they extended towards him, despite the wrongs he had done, was disarming. One day, while attending a gathering in a lush, vibrant clearing, John noticed the way the women spoke to one another, their voices rising and falling in a beautiful cadence that seemed to resonate with the rhythm of the natural world around them. Laughter echoed, and the air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers and the sounds of distant waterfalls. He found himself captivated, realizing that this was not just a gathering. It was a celebration of life and solidarity. As he listened to their stories, he discovered the cultural significance behind their traditions, the ways in which they had built a society that cherished empathy and understanding. The women shared tales of their ancestors who had fought against oppression and forged a path toward freedom and equality. These narratives ignited something within John, challenging his perceptions and forcing him to confront his own preconceived notions of power and strength. John's admiration for these women deepened as he began to see their courage. They had chosen to confront him not with vengeance, but with a desire for justice and understanding. Each of them had been touched by his actions, yet they approached him not with bitterness, but with a willingness to engage. They wanted answers, yes, but more than that, they sought to teach him about their lives and their struggles. During one particularly moving exchange with a woman named Alara, he learned about her journey to leadership in her community. She spoke passionately about her efforts to create a more inclusive society, one that honored every voice. Her eyes sparkled with determination as she described initiatives aimed at education and empowerment. John was struck by the depth of her resolve and the grace with which she approached every challenge. In that moment, he felt a profound sense of connection, as if the walls that had once separated them were crumbling. As days turned into months, John began to see his role in this society differently. He was no longer just an outsider facing accusations. He was a participant in a larger narrative about redemption and growth. The women who had once seemed like adversaries became allies in a shared journey toward understanding. They challenged him to confront his past, to take responsibility for his actions, and to strive for a better future, for both himself and for them. John's heart swelled with gratitude as he realized that he had been given an unexpected gift, the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to heal. The twist of fate that had brought him to this planet was transforming into a journey of self-discovery. In the strength of these women, he found a mirror reflecting his own potential for change. He was not merely a man accused of wrongdoing. He was part of a new community, one that held the promise of forgiveness and hope, redemption and reconciliation. In the depths of space, amidst swirling stars and distant galaxies, John found himself on an alien planet, facing the consequences of his past. Once a man driven by ambition and ego, he had committed grave wrongs that echoed through the lives of those he had encountered. Yet, amidst his turmoil, a flicker of self-awareness sparked within him. Realizing the error of his ways, John sought to make amends for the harm he had caused. John approached the Galactic Women's Tribunal, a powerful assembly that governed the lives of the planet's inhabitants. His request was simple yet profound. He wished to stay and become part of their society. At first, the women were skeptical. They remembered the pain he had inflicted, and their initial reaction was one of suspicion. However, as John spoke with heartfelt sincerity, his remorse evident in his voice, they began to see the man he had become rather than the mistakes of his past. Over the years that followed, John dedicated himself to understanding the culture and values of the women on the planet. He immersed himself in their traditions, learning their language and customs. He volunteered in community projects, helping to cultivate gardens and repair homes, earning their respect and trust. His compassion and humility shone through in every interaction, and gradually, he transformed from an outsider into a valued member of the community. As he spent time with the women, he discovered the strength of their sisterhood, the resilience that bound them together. They shared stories of their struggles and triumphs, and through these exchanges, John learned the true meaning of forgiveness. He began to recognize that redemption was not just about atoning for his past, but also about embracing the future with integrity and kindness. The tribunal's original decision, that he should reproduce with their daughters as punishment, had seemed draconian at first. Yet, as John engaged with the women, he realized that this act was not merely about procreation. It was an opportunity for connection and healing. In time, he fostered genuine relationships built on mutual respect and understanding, ultimately reshaping the narrative from one of punishment to one of shared growth. Through his journey, John also became an advocate for the community, standing alongside the women in their efforts to protect their culture and rights. He used his voice to amplify their needs, helping bridge the gap between their world and others. The respect he garnered was hard-earned, a testament to his commitment to change and his understanding of the pain he had caused. As the seasons changed and years passed, the bonds forged between John and the women deepened. They celebrated milestones together, supported each other through hardships, and built a community steeped in empathy and compassion. When the time finally came for John to consider returning to his home planet, he was struck by a profound realization. He had found a new home among these women, a place where he was accepted, forgiven, and valued. The Galactic Women's Tribunal had initially imposed a sentence upon John, but in an unexpected turn of fate, this sentence had become a pathway to redemption and reconciliation. What began as a punishment blossomed into an opportunity for healing, not just for John but for the women as well. Through forgiveness, they had transformed their pain into strength, creating a narrative of hope and unity. In the end, John stood at a crossroads, reflecting on his journey. He understood that the essence of redemption lay in the ability to change, to learn, and to forge new connections. The women of the planet had not only allowed him to redeem himself, they had also taught him the power of compassion. Together, they embarked on a new chapter, forever bound by the shared bonds of forgiveness, understanding, and love.